You know the story everyone tells. The slow, steady tortoise who defeated the arrogant hare in a race that became legend. But what no one ever told you is why that race happened at all. Because rivalries don't just appear out of thin air. Every challenge begins with old wounds, hidden secrets, memories buried in silence. And this rivalry began long before the race. On a dark night, in a forest where the wind howled through twisted trees, the seed of hatred was planted. The first encounter. By the edge of a quiet lake, a young tortoise walked slowly. She wasn't famous. She wasn't strong. She was just a humble creature who always tried to help others. If a hatchling fell into the water, she would dive in to save it. If someone lost something, she would search until it was found. Nobody paid much attention to her, but everyone trusted her. That same night, under the high moon, another animal appeared in the clearing, leaping between the rocks, fast as the wind itself. It was the hare. And if the tortoise was known for kindness, the hare was known for speed, but also for arrogance. He laughed at everyone, mocked those who couldn't keep up, and deep inside, he believed he was untouchable. It was there, by the lakeside, that the tortoise and the hare met for the first time. The first taunt. The tortoise was collecting fallen fruit. Suddenly, the hare dashed past her, so fast he nearly knocked her over. He stopped, looked down, and let out a sharp laugh. Well, what do we have here? A rock that walks. The tortoise stayed silent, picking up her fruit, but the hare wasn't done. You'll spend the whole day filling that basket. Tell you what, by the time you finish, I'll have run 10 laps around this forest. Some animals nearby started laughing. The tortoise's face flushed, but she didn't answer. See? The hare turned to crowd. She doesn't even dare speak, because she knows she's slow, useless. If I were you, tortoise, I'd just stay home. There's no place for the weak in this forest. And off he went, laughing, while the tortoise lowered her head. A public humiliation. That night, the forest was buzzing with gossip. The little ones repeated the joke about the walking rock. And for the first time, the tortoise felt a heavy sting of shame. But there was something else. A strange seed sprouted inside her. It wasn't just sadness. It was something she had never felt before. Anger. And though she stayed silent, she made herself a promise. Someday, somehow, the hare would learn the value of humility. The forest begins to change. Days passed, and every time they crossed paths, the hare found a new way to mock her. He called her dead weight. He bragged that while she took hours to cross the clearing, he could run to the river and back. And the cruelest part? He always made sure there was an audience. The more laughter he gathered, the prouder he became. The whole forest began to believe the tortoise was worthless, and her loneliness grew heavier by the day. But what no one saw was that in the stillness of night, she kept training, one step at a time, slow but never stopping. The whisper in the dark. One midnight, as she was returning to her burrow, the tortoise heard something strange, a whisper from the bushes. She froze, looked around. Nothing, but the voice seemed to call her name. You won't endure this forever. She shivered, tried to hurry, but the sound followed. One day, you'll have a chance to show them all who you really are. The tortoise trembled, unsure if it was real or just her tired mind playing tricks. But those words echoed deep inside her, and without knowing, her path was being pushed toward a destiny that would change everything. The beginning of the rivalry. A few days later, the hare stood tall in the middle of the forest and shouted, "Attention, everyone, I want to propose a challenge. Not for the strong, but for the weak. I want to show that some were simply born to lose." And then, with a grin, he pointed straight at the tortoise. "You, walking rock, I want everyone to see how pathetic it is to compete against me. Just a small race. Nothing big, just to prove what we already know." The animals roared with laughter, some even cheering for the spectacle. Everyone expected the tortoise to hide in her shell, to walk away in silence. But the voice from that night whispered again in her memory. "One day, you'll have the chance to show them all who you really are." And for the very first time, she lifted her head, looked the hare straight in the eyes and said firmly, "I accept." A heavy silence fell over the clearing. No one expected it. And from that moment, a rivalry was born, one that would echo through eternity. The forest buzzed with excitement. Word spread quickly. The hare had challenged the tortoise to a race. It wasn't the legendary one, not yet. This was just a small contest. But for the animals of the forest, it was entertainment, a cruel game. By the time the sun rose the next morning, dozens of creatures gathered at the clearing. Birds perched high in the branches. Foxes sat in the shade. Even owls who rarely left their trees stayed awake just to watch. The tortoise stood quietly at the starting line. Her shell was heavy, her heart even heavier. Every whisper in the crowd felt like a knife. She'll never make it. This will be over in seconds. The hare will humiliate her. And then, with a thunder of applause and laughter, the hare arrived. He hopped confidently, his ears twitching with arrogance. "Are you ready, little rock?" he mocked. "Don't worry, I'll go easy on you. I wouldn't want you to break a leg before you even cross the first tree." The animals laughed, and the tortoise lowered her eyes. But inside, her anger burned brighter than ever. The race begins. The fox, acting as referee, raised his tail. "On your marks, get set." The hare crouched low, muscles trembling with energy. The tortoise barely moved, her steps already slow before the race even began. "Go!" The hare exploded forward, a blur of fur and dust. In seconds, he was already halfway through the track, laughing as he looked back. "Is that all you've got? Hurry up, or you'll be finishing next year." The crowd roared with laughter. Some animals pointed, others jeered. But the tortoise didn't flinch. She placed one foot forward, then another, slow, steady, unstoppable. The hare's cruelty. Halfway through the race, the hare suddenly stopped. He turned, arms crossed, waiting for the tortoise to catch up. The crowd grew quiet, curious. When she finally approached, he bent down, smirking. "This isn't even a race. It's a joke. You should thank me for letting you play." Then, in a move no one expected, he stretched out his foot, and as the tortoise tried to pass, he tripped her. The crowd gasped. The tortoise stumbled, her shell crashing against the dirt. A hush fell over the forest. For the first time, some animals shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't funny anymore. But the hare didn't care. He laughed harder. "Pathetic, you can't even walk without falling. How could you ever hope to win against me?" The whisper returns. The tortoise lay in the dust, her body aching, her pride shattered. Tears welled in her eyes. And then she heard it again. That same voice. That same whisper in the dark. "Get up, don't stop. One day, you will show them all." Her breathing slowed. Her anger sharpened. She pushed herself up, one trembling step at a time. The hare blinked, confused. "Still trying? Why? Don't you see it's hopeless?" But she didn't answer. She kept walking, slow, bruised, but unbroken. The unexpected ending. The hare, bored of waiting, sprinted to the finish line. The crowd cheered loudly, but not as fiercely as before. Some animals still clapped, others stayed silent, disturbed by what they had seen. Minutes later, the tortoise finally crossed the finish line. Her shell was dirty, her legs trembling. No cheers, no applause, just silence. And in that silence, something shifted. A strange unease spread among the animals. The hare had won, yes, but somehow it didn't feel like victory. The tortoise didn't speak. She simply lifted her head, looked at the hare, and whispered only to herself. One day. The dust had settled. The hare had won, but the victory felt hollow. The animals left the clearing in silence, carrying with them two very different images. The arrogant laughter of the hare, and the silent, bruised determination of the tortoise. And slowly, something began to change. Divided whispers. At first, it was just murmurs. A squirrel muttered to a friend, "Did you see the way he tripped her? That wasn't right." A deer whispered. She kept walking, even after falling. I don't think I could have done that." But others defended the hare. "Don't be ridiculous. He's the fastest. That's all that matters. The tortoise should know her place. The forest had never been divided before. Now, camps were forming, those who admired the hare's speed, and those who respected the tortoise's courage, the hare's growing pride. The hare, of course, noticed none of this. He basked in his own glory, convinced he was untouchable. He raced birds in the sky, leaping higher than they could fly. He challenged foxes to sprints and left them in the dust. Every victory swelled his pride, and every chance he got, he reminded everyone, remember the tortoise? The slow rock that thought she could race me? That's what happens when the weak forget their place. The laughter returned, but it was weaker now, forced. Some animals laughed just to hide their discomfort. The tortoise in the shadows. Meanwhile, the tortoise withdrew into silence. She no longer walked in the open. At night, she wandered alone, training in secret, step after step. Her body ached. Her shell scraped against the rocks, but she kept going. Sometimes she stumbled, sometimes she collapsed, but always she rose again. And each night, the whisper returned. Patience. Endure. Your time will come. She didn't know if it was a spirit, her own thoughts, or something else entirely, but it gave her strength. Strength she had never known before. A chill in the forest. Seasons passed. Leaves fell, rivers froze, and still the tension lingered. The hare's arrogance grew like wildfire. The tortoise's silence grew heavier, sharper, and the forest began to wait. Every creature felt it, though no one spoke aloud. The sense that something inevitable was coming. A reckoning, the unseen encounter. One evening, under a blood-red sunset, the hare crossed paths with the tortoise again. She was carrying food slowly back to her burrow. He grinned, blocking her way. Still crawling? Haven't you learned yet? You'll never be anything but slow. This time, the tortoise didn't lower her head. She met his eyes, and though her voice was quiet, it cut sharper than a blade. Speed fades, pride crumbles, but persistence endures. The hare laughed so hard, he almost fell over. But for a moment, just a moment, he felt something strange. A chill, as if deep down he knew her words carried a truth he didn't want to face. The forest's expectation. That night, the animals whisper more boldly. She's different now. Her eyes, they're not the same as before. Maybe one day she will beat him. A dangerous idea began to spread, one that the hare would never tolerate if he heard it. The tortoise might not be as weak as everyone thought, and so the forest held its breath, waiting for the day the two would clash again, not in a small, cruel game, but in a race that would decide everything. Whispers had become fire. Every corner of the forest hummed with one single question. When will they race again? The animals no longer wanted petty games, no cruel tricks. They wanted proof. They wanted an ending to the rivalry that haunted them all. The pressure builds. The owl elders, who had watched generations rise and fall, spoke gravely. Balance must be restored. Pride cannot go unanswered. The foxes whispered among themselves. We should organize something official. Even the birds, who once cared little for the ground dwellers, began to chant in the treetops. A real race, a true test. And soon, the pressure grew too heavy to ignore. The forest demanded a spectacle. The hare's boast. The hare, of course, welcomed the idea. He strutted into the clearing, tail high, ears twitching with pride. A race? Against her? I'll crush her again. But this time, let's make it bigger. Longer. Let everyone see just how hopeless she truly is. His laughter echoed through the trees, and many joined in. But beneath the noise, others exchanged uneasy glances, because the tortoise had not yet spoken. The tortoise's silence. In her burrow, the tortoise listened to the voices outside. Some animals begged her not to do it. He'll destroy you. Don't give him the chance. Others urged her on. We believe in you. Show him who you are. But she stayed silent, her eyes closed, her breath slow and steady, until, in the dead of night, the whisper returned. This is the moment. This is the test. If you endure this, nothing can stop you. And when dawn broke, she stepped out into the clearing. Every eye turned to her. The acceptance. The Hare grinned wickedly. Well, what do you say, Little Rock? Are you brave enough to be humiliated again? For a long moment, the tortoise said nothing. The forest fell into silence. Even the wind seemed to pause. And then, with a voice calm but unshakable, she spoke. I will race you, not for pride, not for glory, but so the forest may see the truth. Strength is not in speed, but in endurance. A ripple went through the crowd. The animals erupted, some in cheers, others in laughter, others in doubt. But one thing was certain. The race was happening. The forest prepares. The foxes drew the path, long, winding, treacherous, through valleys, across streams, beneath shadows of towering trees. A course no animal could finish easily. Birds spread the news beyond the forest. Even creatures from distant lands began to arrive, eager to witness history. The air grew thick with anticipation. Every creature, predator and prey alike, would gather for this day, the day the hare and the tortoise would finally face each other. For real. The night before, on the eve of the race, the forest was restless. The hare boasted loudly to anyone who would listen, laughing until his voice grew hoarse. But when night fell and the clearing went quiet, he felt a strange unease. For just a moment, he remembered the look in the tortoise's eyes, that unshaken gaze, that calm defiance. He shook it off, laughing to himself. Nonsense. Tomorrow, I'll end this once and for all. Meanwhile, in the shadows, the tortoise stood alone beneath the moonlight. She placed one foot forward, then another, her breathing steady, her eyes fixed on the horizon. And softly, almost too softly to hear, she whispered to herself, tomorrow everything changes. Dawn broke. The forest was alive. From every corner, creatures gathered. Wolves crouched silently in the shadows. Birds filled the sky in swarms. Even predators who once hunted prey now stood side by side, their eyes fixed on the clearing. For today was no ordinary day. Today, the hare and the tortoise would race. Not for fun, not for cruelty, but for something deeper, something eternal. The starting line. The foxes had drawn the path. A long, winding course through hills, streams, and thick brush. No shortcuts, no tricks, only endurance. At the starting line, the hare bounced eagerly, his muscles twitching with energy. This won't take long, he boasted. By the time she takes her first step, I'll already be at the finish. The tortoise stood opposite him, calm as stone. Her shell gleamed in the morning light, her eyes fixed, unwavering. The owl elder raised his wings. The rules are simple. First to the finish wins. No interference. No excuses. May the forest itself bear witness. The crowd hushed. The tension thickened. The air felt heavy, charged, almost electric. Ready? Set. And with a sharp cry, go! The hare takes flight. The hare exploded forward, a blur of speed. Dust and leaves spiraled in his wake. Gasps and cheers erupted as he darted through the trees, leaping over rocks and streams with effortless grace. In moments, he was out of sight. The tortoise took her first step, slow, steady, unshaken. The crowd murmured, torn between admiration and pity. She doesn't stand a chance. But look, she's not stopping. The forest watches. As the hare raced ahead, animals along the path shouted in awe, faster than the wind. He'll finish before she's even halfway. But the tortoise pressed on, one step, then another, her breath steady. Her gaze locked forward. Somewhere in the trees, a young squirrel whispered to her mother, "Why doesn't she give up?" The mother answered softly, "Because some battles are not about speed." The hare's pride. After a while, the hare looked back. The tortoise was nowhere to be seen. He laughed loudly, his voice echoing through the valley. Pathetic. She's probably still at the first hill. This isn't even a race, it's a joke. He stopped, stretched, and yawned. The thought crept into his mind. Why not rest? After all, the finish line was close. Victory was certain. What harm could a little nap do? He found a patch of soft grass beneath a tree, laid down, and with a smug grin, closed his eyes. The tortoises march. Hours passed. The tortoise trudged steadily through the path. Her legs ached. Her shell grew heavy. But she never stopped. When she crossed a stream, the water tried to push her back, but she pushed forward. When she climbed a steep hill, the rocks scraped her shell, but she climbed anyway. Step after step, she advanced through the course, and slowly, impossibly, she drew closer to the sleeping hare. The moment of silence. The forest grew still. Those who had followed the hare now gathered around, wide-eyed, as the tortoise approached his resting place. There he was, fast asleep, unaware. The tortoise paused, breathing heavily. For a moment, she looked at him. The crowd held its breath. And then, without a word, she walked past him. One step, then another, leaving the hare behind. The awakening. Hours later, the hare stirred. He stretched, yawned, and laughed. That was refreshing. Time to finish this race once and for all. He leapt forward, confident, certain of his victory. But as he rounded the final bend, his smile froze. The finish line was ahead, and there, just steps away from crossing it, was the tortoise. The crowd erupted in gasps and cries. The hare's heart pounded. He sprinted with every ounce of strength, ears pinned back, legs flying. But it was too late. The unthinkable happens. With one final step, slow but steady, the tortoise crossed the finish line. The forest exploded in cheers. Birds shrieked from the treetops. Wolves howled into the air. Even the silent owls let out cries of triumph. The hare skidded to a halt, his eyes wide with disbelief. No, this isn't possible," he shouted. But the truth was undeniable. The tortoise had won. The race was over. But the story was not, because victory is never the end. It is the beginning of something far greater. And in the shadows of the cheering crowd, the hare's anger twisted into something darker, something that would change the forest forever. The race was over. The forest erupted in celebration. The tortoise, slow and steady, had claimed victory. But victory, as they would soon learn, is never simple. The tortoise's glory. The animals lifted the tortoise on their backs. Birds sang songs of her courage. Even the smallest creatures bowed in respect. For the first time, she felt the weight of admiration. She had proven that persistence mattered more than speed. Yet, amidst the cheers, she felt a strange emptiness. Glory felt heavy. Fame felt fragile. She had achieved what no one thought possible. But she also realized that the forest was watching, and everyone's expectations weighed upon her like stones. The hare's rage. The hare, meanwhile, seethed. His ears drooped. His chest heaved. The forest had laughed with him for so long. And now, they celebrated the tortoise instead. He paced. He growled. And though he tried to laugh, the sound came out hollow. "This isn't over," he muttered. "I was faster. I should have won. How could this happen?" He looked at the tortoise, her calm face framed by the crowd, and felt something he had never expected. Envy, but deeper than envy, fear, because for the first time, he had witnessed a strength he could not match. The forest changes. In the days that followed, the forest was never the same. The animals who had doubted the tortoise now followed her quietly. The ones who had admired the hare began to question him. Some whispered, "Perhaps speed alone is not enough." Others laughed nervously, trying to hide their change of heart. And the forest itself seemed to shift. Where arrogance once ruled, humility began to grow. Where mockery once echoed, respect now lingered. The lesson of time. The tortoise returned to her quiet walks, her simple life unchanged. But the memory of the race lingered. And every step she took, slow but steady, reminded the forest of one undeniable truth. Patience and persistence can overcome even the greatest arrogance. The hare, meanwhile, could not let go. He trained harder, ran faster, but the shadow of the tortoise's victory always followed him. It was a lesson he would never forget. Speed without discipline, without humility, can falter, and arrogance can lead to downfall. The rivalry that lasts, Even years later, the forest animals would speak of that day, not just the race itself, but the look in the tortoise's eyes, calm and unyielding, the fire in the hare's heart, burning with both pride and regret. And sometimes, in the whispering wind, creatures say they can hear the voice of the forest. Strength is not in how fast you run, but in how long you endure. The tortoise and the hare became legends, not because one was faster than the other, but because their story showed the forest a truth it could never forget. We have reached the end of this fable, this story, this tale. Call it what you want. The imagination is yours. And if I were you, I would continue following our stories. You won't lose by waiting for the next ones to come. A big hug and see you later.